And prices jumped substantially. Why are prices lower this year? Wheat. Australia's crop came back from 11 million tons to 22 million tons. Europe, no drought, save in southern Spain. US, better wheat crop. Canada, better wheat crop. Black Sea, Russia, Ukraine, better wheat crop. Commodity prices down. And of course, crude oil down, yes. But that commodity that none of you are trading dictates a lot of what happens to your price. So you're not just a soybean trader anymore. You're not just a corn trader anymore. You're now a trader watching also the other markets, wheat market, crude oil market. Argentinian production this year on corn, due to their drought, large drop in corn production. Argentinian exports of corn dropping substantially due to their reduced crop, down to about 9 million tons. Brazil, faring a little better than Argentina. Brazil did not experience the same severe dry conditions that Argentina did. China, one thing that we knew for many, many years, and that was every year, more or less, China produces 145 million tons of corn, and they consume 149 million tons of corn. So they're consuming about 4 million tons more per year than they produce, and that cannot go on forever. So if you're taking us back a year, that's the statement that would have been made over and over again. And so China is going to be an importer of corn sometime soon. Well, China fooled us this year. China jumped from 145 million tons of production to 162 million tons of production. So it doesn't look like China is going to be an importer of corn anytime soon, but something that's important to watch. China corn exports going down by USDA projections of something close to 500,000 tons. If you talk to private exporters, they would tell you that actually because of that 162 million ton production, China may actually export something close to 1 million tons this year. So USDA says 500,000 tons, private sources says 1 million tons. Where will that go? It will go to Asia. It will go to Korea and surrounding countries. Click the right button. South Africa's corn crop came back, had a good year. World production of corn, 785, 796. So again, do we have a crisis this year in world corn production? No, we're producing more corn than we ever had. We actually have, if you look at the red line, usage versus production, for the first time in a while, the red line is above the gold column. A year ago, 2 years ago, when I gave this presentation, that red line was below usage. So it was quite a concern. Things certainly have changed a bit. Corn ending stocks, though, down to levels that make the market a little bit nervous, down to about 16% stocks-to-use ratio. That's the corn picture. Switching over to soybeans, since some of you in the market are also interested in soybeans, U.S. planted acres, remember you saw corn jump? When you saw corn jump, what did it mean? Soybeans had to suffer. They had to give up that land. So we had a dramatic decrease in soybeans, and now that battle for acres is taking place again, and we're seeing land used for soybean production coming back up and adjusting. And how does that battle for acres actually take place? It takes place financially. What will give the farmer the best rate of return to use and to plant on his land? Soybean trend line, well, it looks a little bit like that corn chart. It's increasing over time, but it's a bumpy road. It's an up and down road depending on how weather conditions play out. When will we see that next dip that causes a problem? I don't know. I can't predict the weather. Maybe you can't either. So when that next weather event occurs, there'll be a problem, price-wise. Soybean planting progress. This is what the U.S. has been looking at right now. We sit here today towards the end of May. In the United States, May 15 is an important date. We all know, if we live in the United States, that if you don't get your corn planted by May 15th, any corn planted after the 15th day of May has a historical decline in yield potential. So it's important to get as much of the corn crop in the ground prior to May 15, and that corn, because of that yield drag that occurs after May 15, means that more and more farmers, if they don't plant their corn, may switch over and plant soybeans. So now we're past May 15. Now we'll see how many of those farmers switch. Will we have another 1 million acres switch from corn, or what was originally intended? When I met with farmers on my last trip, I asked one farmer, I said, well, do you have your corn seed purchased yet? Yes, I do, he said. I said, well, how's the planting going? He says, I haven't gotten it in the ground. He says, of course, if I don't get it in the ground, if I don't get it in the ground the next week or two, I'll give my corn seed back to the seed company and I'll plant soybeans. So we'll have to see how that goes. Here's where we are, that black red circle with the black X in the middle. That was 14% before I left. Actually, there was another report that came out. We made very good progress on corn, very good progress on soybeans last week. The weather finally cleared up. We had about 5-6 days of dry weather, and the farmers did get in the field and make very good progress. Soybean production increasing. Soybean crush increasing. So we have to keep that production up with the consumption. Soybean exports, about 1.2 billion bushels, about 34 million tons of soybean exports from the United States. Funny how we see soybeans now catching up. We only have about 1.8, 1.9 million bushels of corn exports, 1.2, almost 1.3 of soybeans. Soybean ending stocks. Again, go to the bottom of the chart and look and see, how do we end up? Well, the red line down here is about 7.5%, 8%, 7.4 stocks to use ratio. How does the market feel today, the U.S. market, the international market, how does the market feel today with this level of comfort? Annie told you, and Annie was certainly correct, the market is human. The market is human because it's played, it's invested, it's played by human beings. Therefore, it has a tremendous psychological element. How comfortable is that market at 7.4% stocks to use ratio on soybeans versus how it felt when it was back up here? It doesn't feel as good. It feels a little more nervous. Other countries. Argentina is the big issue this year, one of the big issues. The Argentinian soybean crop, which had been up here just under 50 million, dropped this year. USDA said 34 million. Private forecasters from Argentina and elsewhere say that actually 34 is probably high. It's probably somewhere around 30 to 31 million tons in the Argentinian soybean crop. So if that crop is really down 30, 31 million tons, next year hopefully it will rebound if you're a world buyer. But now look back at this previous chart. We're sitting here, stocks to use ratio. We have Argentina with a 30 or 31 million ton crop. How does the market feel? Market feels nervous. Market says, by gosh, the U.S. better have a good production. By gosh, the U.S. better not have bad weather. Argentinian exports dropping obviously because of the reduction in the crop. Brazil produced, had a very good, again, Brazil was not in that drought belt, didn't suffer the same losses, but Brazil likes to feed most of its products, corn and soybeans, so they do export. They like to feed it to animals and export the meat. Brazil soybean exports, about 24 million tons. China, that big sucking sound that we have in the world for soybeans. Demand about 53 million tons according to